Hey YouTube, this is KMCCMK9 Master Tech, and today is going to be tutorial part 2 of my Blender series, and this is going to be all about the material settings and what you can do. So, first open up Blender, and you're given your default layout of your cube, light, and camera. Just for this purpose, I'm going to delete the camera and add a new, delete the cube, and add a new cube. Okay. And as a good habit, when you add something again, you always want to come down to your links and materials and you want to make sure you name it. So for this tutorial, I'm going to name it cube and cube. So we're going to talk about materials today. So if you go to your materials button, if you add a new object, you should not have anything here. It should look like this. You should see ME cube, which is, and then click add new, and all this shows up and you're probably like, whoa. So a good habit again is to name your material, MA cube color. Alright, so first, this first section of the panel is called preview, as you probably can see. And it basically just gives you a basic preview of how your texture would look. You can change this to be flat, on a sphere, on a cube, on a monkey. I think that's there for fun. Personally, I like to leave it just as the sphere. Next to that is you have material. Okay, some settings in here that you can tweak are shadeless. So for example, if I render this, it's a gray cube, right? So if I turn on shadeless, it's now like completely, like there's no definition. You basically just see the outline filled with a color. So that's what shadeless does. Really, I don't like it for anything except the game engine. Next to that, we have no mist. That makes it so it can't be affected by mist or any settings you change with mist. Down here in the settings, you have color, well, cull, spe, and mirror. Cull is for color, spe is for specularity, and mirror is for mirror. So color, you could select that, and you could choose your colors, or if you have exact numbers, RGB, you can plug them in here. That's up to you. I like to usually freehand it. So there's red. If I render the scene, I now have a red cube. Again, I could do shadeless if I wanted to, but I don't. Specularity. If you look in the preview, this white dot, that's what specularity is. You can change that. So if I change that to yellow, if you notice over here, it's a little more yellow. You probably can't notice it there. Can't really notice it there either. Mirror only works if you turn on ray mirror, which we'll get into in a second. So I'm not going to go into that right now. Okay, down below that we have A, which is alpha. So you could turn this very low, and it becomes transparent. Very nice trick there. Okay, so I'm just going to add a plane. And I'm just going to use this for our next demonstration. Alright. If you come down to the next one where it says render pipeline, halo, what that does is it makes the individual vertices of your object be balls of light. So if I turn that on right now, I get 6, 8, wow, counting. Now I could subdivide this and give it lots of vertices. Now I render it. It's going to take a lot more time, but looks like a glowing cube. Probably too many there, but you get the point. There you go. Now it's like lasers. That's a good laser effect. Z transparent, that's for if you have a transparent texture for the game engine. Otherwise, you don't use it. Now coming over to our next panel, you want to click Mirror Transparent, and you will see Ray Mirror and Ray Transparent. If you turn on Ray Mirror, what this does, and you could turn up Ray Mirror, and as you turn it up, you see it over here. And when you render this, what it does is the more you turn it up, the more mirroring it does of other objects. For example, you get more of a glassy effect here, as you can see. Now transparency, that gives you the ability to see through without absorbing the background color. So as you can see, from this time compared to other times, instead of just seeing blue through this, you see the background plain instead. Okay, so those are just two tricks you can do with that. Now, what I'm going to show you next is adding a texture to this. So if you come to the texture and you click Add New, again, you should always get in the habit of naming. So I'm just going to name this Cube Text. Alright, if you come to Map Input, you're given a lot of settings. UV is if you've UV mapped it, which we will get into. Orco is put it on there and it does whatever you say it does. And Offset is if you want to offset it in a certain direction, or you want to increase the size so it repeats. Which, by the way, size, if you make it smaller, it gets bigger. If you make it bigger, then it gets smaller. It's kind of weird. Okay, so for our object, since we're going with basic objects here, it's a cube. So down here, we're going to pick Orco, and then we're going to pick Cube. Because if we pick Flat, then it's basically going to take our image, plop it on top, and then stretch it. And it's going to look bad. If we do Tube, it's going to try to wrap it like if it were a tube. Like, you know, like a toilet paper roll. It's going to try to wrap it. It's not going to look good either. If we do Sphere, then it's going to try to make it like a ball. And that's not going to look good either. So if we do Cube, then it recognizes each face and reproduces the image on each face. Which is what we want, since this is a basic object. So to do that, what you want to do is you want to come to your textures, and here's your texture type. So you can choose one of the built-ins if you want to try. I like to just use images. So I'm going to choose image, and then don't really worry about this too much, but you can change your X and Y repeat amounts here if you want it. Load your image. So for example, I'm just going to use, so I selected that. You can see it here, and you can see the preview of it here. If we go back to our material, it's wrapped on that. You could change it to be wrapped on the cube so you can see what it looks like. I again just like to leave it as a sphere. Okay, so if we rendered this right now, you'll see we have a desert picture on each face. Each face. Okay, so now that we have a image on each face, what we can do is we can also set this to UV. And that gives you much more control at which face shows this image or this part of an image. You could rotate it, twist it, whatever you want. So the important thing to do is come into your map input, select UV, and then select flat. For UV, you always want flat. It just seems to work out better. Then you want to split your area and make one your UV image editor. Okay, so now, like I said, if we rendered this, if we rendered this before we did UV, it looks like that. Nope, sorry. It looks like that. Now, so if we go to flat and UV, what we want to do, now say I'm in face selection mode. If I select the top face, press U and unwrap, you can see that's what it's selected on. The yellow border is your face representation. Now you can, I'm going to scale this on the X and then grab on the X with SX and GX, and now it covers most of the image. So if we tabbed into object mode, hit F12 to render, you'll see that it does have the entire picture on each face now. Okay, so now the very cool thing is, if I still on this top face, if you noticed in our render that the top face is turned that way, what if we want it shown towards the camera more? So we want to rotate it, you know, like 90 degrees or whatever, or 180 degrees for that matter. So again, we're gonna unwrap, and it's over here, rotate 180 degrees, and if we rendered that, there you go, it's flipped 180 degrees. Now I could rotate 90. It will come out a little weird, but if you're good with eyeballing it, you could theoretically scale on the Y and scale on the X. And there you go. Now it's rotated 90 degrees and it looks really nice. And the really cool thing is you can do that on any face. So if I wanted to unwrap this face and put it on desert, I could scale this by 4. And what that'll do when I render is it'll make 4. It's basically repeating itself. And you can basically do that if you have different images. There's also a way of, I'll get into that in a different video, but there is a way to set up multiple textures and then UV map to different textures if you wanted. And that is basically it for this tutorial. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please send me a message, post a comment on the video. Please comment, rate, and subscribe. And I have a new Twitter. Please follow me on twitter.com, www.twitter.com/KMCCMK9. I will post a link in the description box. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.